Welcome to day 7 of the fall 2024 Programming Fundamentals with C#. This is Jim Kaufman with Rankin Technical College. Today we're going to be covering the following items. Actually, the first thing I was going to do is just let everybody know that for the most part, I think I have there's a couple of students I have something I need to look at for their grades for this for the work that was you know submitted by Monday by midnight. A couple things I need to look at still, but for the most part, most of the students I've completed the grading for that. And then what we're going to go ahead and do from there is we're going to go ahead and discuss the Chapter 4 labs. Just kind of go over them. I'll give you some hints about some things along the way. And then we'll go ahead and do a code along because as far as from the WinForm perspective, we did console apps and, I know early on we did a little bit of WinForms, but, kind of need to get back into that a little bit and refresh our memories on that. So, I've got a feet to meters program that I kind of wrote, and I'll redo that and we'll start that from scratch. And that'll be similar to the first program for the lab assignment for Chapter 4. And then after that, we'll go ahead and we'll go through Chapter 5, how to code control structures, and do a presentation. Won't be as grueling as the Chapter 4 one. Should be a little better than that one, and we'll look at a few different code examples with that as well. So let's go ahead and look at Chapter 4 here. And basically this is very similar to the two of these actually out of the 3 labs that are for Chapter 4 here are very similar to what we did for the console apps, right? We're just doing this for the WinForms app, right? For WinForm app. So, and I'm going to do a feet to meters and our meters to feet, which will be very similar to this. So we can look at that. Let's see what else here. And I'll go through this again later as well, but just to start out here. So this is app's called Chicken Farmer, and you basically got, number of eggs laid by each chicken. I guess you can look at these as baskets. So you got 4 baskets. And so you got a basket of 40, 23, 36, and 31. And so what you're going to do is you're going to calculate. So basically you're going to add these all up, and this is going to be your output label down here at the bottom. So you're going to add them all up, and that first one will be your total amount of eggs. And then if you take that number, the total number, divide that by 12, that will tell you how many dozen you have. And then the last number is 7 here in this scenario. Basically, this is where you use modulus, right? You're going to take the total number. You're going to take the total number. You're going to take the total number, and then you're going to do a modulus on this, and this 7 will be the remainder. Okay? So this is the total. This is the number. That's the total divided by 12, and this is going to be your total with modulus 12. Okay? And we'll look at a little modulus code just to help you with that. And this next one here is payroll projections. So I'll go ahead and show you one where a student completed this. One thing he did a little bit different. He didn't use these group boxes. So you can use these group. I'll show you how to use these group ones. So this is basically, a group that holds on to multiple things. So I'll show you how to do this group thing. But basically, and this is very similar, obviously, to what we did for the console app. It's obviously different because it's a WinForms app. And then, you're going to have probably the easiest way to do this bottom part is make these all labels and then populate and then, save it. When I say populate, basically when you're going to put the data for your totals on each one depending on what it is, right? So, and we'll go through this a little more. But here you've got basically year 2018, 2019, 20. This is going to be set, right? But these up here, this is going to be, this is going to be dynamic based on the name you put in this field, right? Bob, Fred, Will, right? So we'll go through that. So what we'll go ahead and do now is go and do the feet to meters. So let's go ahead and so I'm going to bring up Visual Studio 2022, and we're going to create a new project, okay? And we're not doing a console app. Now, going forward here, you might see I have some extra stuff because I was kind of looking into some other frameworks that are available. So I might have some extra things that you don't have. So for the easiest way, you probably only have a few to choose from. But for me, it's probably best for me to really search for it to make sure I don't grab the wrong thing. So here's our Windows Forms app. You want to make sure it's C#. We're going to select this, go to next. All right. And then let's just, I guess for your perspective, let's just kind of pretend this is lab 1. All right. I'm going to put mine in, and I guess you can put yours in the sandbox as well. So I use shortcuts. If you want to know how to do that, I can show you. So here's my repository. All right. And now just the fact that we're here, let me show you something. So here in our lab 1 on our chapter 4, all these are clean going forward because I know in chapter 2 and 3 there was stuff. So these are all clean. There's nothing in there. So that cause a little less confusion for you there. But for what I'm going to do for this, I'm going to choose the sandbox. Okay. And I'm going to choose chapter 4. All right. So I'm doing a sandbox chapter 4, and you can do the same, but obviously for your labs, you want to be using lab chapter 4, right? And so I'm going to select that folder, calling it lab 1, and here's going to be my solution name. I'm going to change this to I'll show you why. So what we're going to do is we're going to have our solution, and we can have, in our solution, we'll have multiple labs, okay? So we're going to do this like that, okay? And then we're going to click next here. So make sure you got your location, make sure this is your repository. It was kind of struggle for some students, and I understand. You can make sure it's your GitHub repository, and you're actually creating it in there so that it'll show up in GitHub Desktop, and a lot less confusion with that. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and click next here, and click create, and it's creating it over here. I'm gonna move this over there. Okay, so let me show you a couple things while we're here. So over here in our solution, this is lab 1, right? That we just created. But if you want to, so we got lab 1. So let like I said, I put mine in the sandbox. But when you're, and if you're doing the same, that's great. Just when you're doing the labs, you want to have it in the labs directory. And so when you do though, after, let's say you do one for lab 1, you can go up here and right click on solution and do add new project. So that will put like lab 2. And then when you finish that, you can go ahead and add a new project also. So it's adding project to that solution. So all of your labs will be in that solution. If it doesn't work that way for you, that's okay. You're not going to get points off on grading or anything. But, it's just one way to do it to keep everything together, okay? So just wanted to let you know you can do that. And And sometimes, you get in here and get kind of confused where you're at. Here's the designer comes up, but sometimes, when you're clicking around and doing different things, you kind of lose where you're at. If you go to your form here, and you can rename this to something else, okay? But for this form, if you right click on this form, right? You got two options. You can view the code, or you can view the designer. Right now, we're seeing the designer. If I choose view code, so this is basically where we go ahead and when we do our button clicks, this is where we put our code, right? When we do all our logic, this is where we'll put our code for the most part. So, but I just want to let you know if sometimes you get something and you don't know where it is, if you right click this, you can view the designer or view the code, right? And then also, you've got an option to, if you are in here and you're kind of confused if what directory you're in and stuff like that, if you go up to your solution up here, you can do this open folder in File Explorer. So this will show you exactly where you're at. Okay, yep, I'm in the right place. Sometimes I know it can be you're in here and you're kind of a little confused on where you're at, right? It does say it down here though, right? Also, this is your path down here to where the code is. Just want to make sure everybody's putting their code in the right place so there's no confusion with that, okay? All right, so we're going to go back to our designer, view designer here. And so here's our form. So the first thing is, I'm just going to put a label at the top, okay? So here, and obviously sometimes you're going to lose, especially when we worked on our console apps. We didn't care about the toolbox back then, right? But we care about the toolbox now because we use that. So we go back up here to view, go down to toolbox, you click on the toolbox, and there's all your options there, right? And then the first thing is we're going to go ahead and put a label up here at the top. And then over here in our properties, we're going to go down here and we're going to put in, for the name, let's call this, let me think, what do we want to call this? We'll just call this, and like in the book, you can do things differently if you want, but in the book it kind of suggests, and it is a good idea to name things, consistently. Whatever you're going to call your labels, just kind of be consistent and make sure you don't just use label 1, label 2, label 3, because then you can kind of get confused, especially when you're coding and you're replacing values. You have to know which one you're replacing. If it has a name, then it's easier, right? So here I'm just going to do label title, right? And then I'm going to go down here and go down to text, and I'm going to just call this measurement, okay? All right. And I know on your screen it's pretty hard to see. And, whatever works for you, I'm going to change mine. I'm going to change mine to Arial. I'm going to make it 18. Make it a little bigger. Okay, so there's our label. So next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to drag another label over there. Actually, let me show you before we go any further, because I've got so this is, I've got 2 Visual Studios up right now, right? I got 2 Visual Studios up, not to confuse things. So this is what it's going to look like when we're done, Okay, so I've got the number of feet here, number of meters, and I've just got a button that converts them. So basically that, convert to meters, okay? Or we can do this and then convert to feet, all right? So just wanted to let you know this is the end product. Okay. So that, and then so we're going to put our labels, another label here, and this one here. We're going to go up here and label, we'll call this label num feet maybe. How about that? And look at what I did on the others, but so let's see here. And then our text, number of feet. So we got that, and then for right now, let's not, I won't change the fonts on this, because basically what we can actually do is change them all at one time, and I'll show you that. I might have shown you this before, I don't recall. So let's put another label over here, and we're going to call this one LBL, and num meters. Okay. And down here, I'm going to put number. Number of meters. Okay. Then we're going to put some text boxes, right? We'll put a text box right here. And here we're going to do text num feet. Text number of feet. And then we'll go ahead and do another text box here. Put it there. And this one here, we're going to do text num of meters. Okay. So we got that and that there. So what we can do here is actually, and then like I said, we can grab all of this. And we can go down to our font in the properties window. We can grab that. That way it took care of all those in one time. And then you move it around, has these little guides, right? So you can move it around different places, get it looking how you want to get it looking. And then, when you're happy with it, let's just, I'll just show you now, and then we can unlock it again. But when you get something all set up, you got to be careful after that, because then you start playing around, you start moving things that you didn't mean to move. So what you can do is use a lasso. So basically you're doing a left press on your mouse, right? Left press, holding it down and selecting all this. And then you can right click here. Oh, I did it the wrong way. Let me go. All right, so then you can select lock controls. So this will lock everything. So now, whoop, didn't mean to do that. So now you can't move it, right? You try to grab it, you can't move it. So, there's a lot of benefit in that, right? But for now, we want to we're still building this. So we're going to go ahead and unlock this. So if I go here, right click, and then do lock controls again, you see the little padlocks are gone, the little locks are gone. So now you can move these, okay? All right, and then we're going to create a couple buttons. And this one here is going to be for button, started out with, BTN, and then convert to meters. You can always copy too. You can always copy, paste, right? Different options. You can drag another one, or you can do it like that, right? But you'd just have to make sure now that you get this other button. Okay, and then you got to make sure you change the value of this one. So this is going to be button convert to feet. And just to kind of review, you want to make sure that you don't have spaces in your name here, because this is how you're referring to this in the code, right? The text portion, that's just for display purposes, right? But the name of your button, that's very important, right? So I wanted to point that out. And we'll go down here to our text, and then we're going to say convert to feet. Okay. And I think I forgot to do the text on this one. Convert to meters. Okay. And then once again, you know, like you could do this all at one time, obviously. It makes things a lot easier. I'm just kind of showing you just so then you can change the fonts all at one time. It makes things a little easier, but, you know, it just depends on what you're doing. I was just wanting to point it out multiple times so you can kind of remember. You have to make sure you change the, drag it a little bit, get it like you want it, right? And kind of want to get that a little bigger, make things line up. It's one thing I do. I sure do that a lot. And another thing is here, you're doing the size stuff, so you should be able to just copy. Let me see. You can always copy it like that to make it, or you know, early on, if you get your one button done perfect, you like the size, you know, you can copy it over. But that's okay. So we have a number of feet, number of meters. Here's our convert. Yeah, I could, you know, could make it a little nicer, could do a little better spacing and stuff. But for now, so I'm gonna go ahead and select all of that. I'm gonna right click and do lock controls. So we got that locked for now. Okay, the next thing we want to do here, we'll go ahead and click our convert to meters, which will bring up our code, right? Button convert to meters. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're grabbing, we want to get our text for our feet, right? And then we're gonna grab how many feet we put in there, and we're gonna convert that to meters, right? So we're gonna do double here, feet, and then we're gonna do a convert. There you go. And you know, with the code completion, it helps you find it, right? So there's your label, number of feet dot text, right? And then actually what we need here is we need that text one. What do we call that text one? So we want text number of feet. Okay? Because this is our field and not our label. Sorry, I got a little confused there on that. So yeah, this is our this is our text box, you know, that we enter data in, right? So that's our feet. And then we need to calculate from here. We need to calculate meters. And we're going to do that by, we're going to take our feet and we're going to multiply that by, and you know, just you can look on the internet how to you know, convert meters to feet, right? And so the way to do that is you multiply that by 30.48. There's that. And then, oh, one thing I did forget. So I forgot to put the results. So let's just save this. Go back to our designer here. And the bottom here, I'm going to unlock this for a minute. We're going to put our result label down here, okay? So we need to add another label. Right down here. And let's call this result label. All right. All right. We want to get rid of the text on that though. So this is how you can use labels actually when you're just wanting to put some results, but you don't want anything there, right? You don't want, you use the labels just to put data there, but you don't want it to show anything on the screen, right? So you basically do that and that'll take care of that, right? So let's save that. Now let's get back over here. So I was doing the meters. Now we want to go ahead and do our label result, right? You select that one. And then we want to do dot text. And from there we want to do, actually I think I'm just going to cut and paste something from over there. Just to make it a little easier. So we're using interpolation, right? Where you got the $ first. And so then you can go ahead and put variables right in your code. So here's feet and here's meters, right? So let's save that. I think that should be good. So let's go back here and let's see if we can just run this for this thing. Let's see if everything works. It should. So here we're going to put in 80 and we're going to convert to meters. And there's our thing. We want to change the size of that. That's something, you know, and that's something you're going to do. You're going to get in here and you're going to play around and you'll have to readjust it for different things. You may want to put color on your buttons, make it stick out a little better, right? Make it a little, you know, more readable, a little nicer, a little more aesthetically pleasing, so to speak. And then obviously make your result a lot bigger, right? So there's that one. And then here we're going to go ahead and click on our convert to feet. And then here, what we're going to want to do is we're going to basically, you know, do it very similar. We're just doing it opposite, right? So we're going to do our double. So we're convert to feet. So double meters equals convert. And we want our text number. So we convert that to meters, right? So then we want to do our convert to feet. So we want to do convert to double. And we want to do, we'll tab that, but basically want to do number of, we want to do our text number of meters, right? So this is our text box, right? The number of meters, and that's our value. And we put that in meters here, right? And then we're going to take our, we're going to do a double feet equal to meters. And we're going to divide that by 0.3048. And then we're going to do our result here. And we're just going to change this to so equals how many feet. Clean that up a little bit. It's always nice to get rid of spaces if you don't need them. Clean it up a little bit, save it. All right, let's go back to our designer here, click on our lab. Then 70 feet, convert to meters. There we go. And then we'll go ahead and do 90. We'll convert that to feet. 90 meters equals not many feet. Obviously, good idea to round it. You know, we've kind of learned about rounding yesterday. So, you know, that would be a nice little addition here to take care of that. Did want to take care of this label, though. A lot of times, if you have a label down here, you don't know what it is. One way to do it, you can lasso it, and you'll see where it is. There it is, right? Because you have to, sometimes, you know, you're trying to click that and stuff, so you can get that little sucker. Yeah, another thing to do here, so at our form, click up here on our form, and then change the name of our form. So we want to do the text here. So, you know, whatever measurement. But yeah, that's what's bad when I did do that little label there. Trying to find that can be a challenge. So that's label result right there. And so what are we wanting to do here? We're wanting to probably change the size of this thing too. So what do we do for this? At least for now, we probably can change that one just so we can click on it and find it. I don't like me doing that because there's no value in there. That's why. But okay, so that's our label, and we wanted to create a font. We want to change our font size to that. So we're going to go up to Arial here. But, you know, just let you know, sometimes when you, especially if you got a bunch of hidden labels, that's one way to find it, you know, lasso it, and then you can, there's your label, all right? I'm not sure why that is not allowing me to change that, but, so, all right, I'm gonna save that. Let's run that again. 60, It's a little bigger. Here's it. So that takes care of that. And you can all lasso the whole thing here. I think I did too many fast things here. It freaked out on me a little bit. And then right click and then do lock controls so you can lock it down. The other thing is we've done before is the tab order, view tab order. In this case, you don't have a lot, right? But it's pretty much set there. Let's just see how that works. And just remember, if you ever, you ever use a tab order and those numbers are there, you want to get rid of that. You need to go down and select tab order again. It gets rid of that. So let's go ahead and run that again. Let's see what happens on tab. So that's got focus. I'm putting focus there. Yeah. So it's, the other thing probably should do is also you want to put focus in the first field. So that would be a nice addition to this, so that when the thing comes up, it has focus in the first field. Any questions about this lab here? It's very, it should be very similar to, what you're going to do for the, the kilometers to miles and vice versa, right? It's pretty similar there, right? So I'm going to go ahead now and show you something else. So, here's an example. This is one of the students' examples of doing a number of eggs laid by each chicken, right? I just want to show you end product here. Put egulate, that's kind of funny. All right, so then you got 40, say 30. And so then basically, like I kind of mentioned before, so the 190, that's going to be, you're going to add up each of these text boxes. That'll be 190, right? Divide the total number, 190, by 12, and that should be your 15 dozen. And then use modulus. You look that up a little bit. I know we kind of, we looked at that a little bit already, but use modulus to get the number 10. So you basically take 190 eggs, and divide it, use modulus 20, and there's going to be 10 extras left over. Okay. What else? I want to show you anything else on that. I just don't want to give you all the code there. All right. So let's go and take a break. It's about 10 till. Let's go and take a 15-minute break. Come back at 5 after 9, and we're gonna look at some of the other concepts for the remaining labs, and we'll go from there. Okay. Okay. Some more things I want to show you here. Kind of review a couple things. Show you how to do a couple things. So over here in your Solution Explorer, like I was saying earlier, if you want to, you create a project with your solution. Make sure but your solution should be probably in a folder. Like here, I got a chapters 4 folder. My solution's there, but then each project's going to be underneath that chapter 4, right? So. And just to review that real quick, so if you click on right click on solution here, then you can go add, add a new project, right? So, and then also kind of want to mention, so when you do this and you're actually, working on your different labs like that, when you've got multiple ones here, one thing that's can be very confusing unless you rename some things. So like here, I've got this projected raises, right? So here, I actually went ahead and changed you got a form, right? And it'll be the little one that looks like a form, right? Little square thing. I actually, that by default, it's always going to be formed like this, right? So what's kind of best to do, especially because if you have multiple apps in here, multiple programs, you'll get confused which forms which one because it'll be form one for each. You have three of them open at one time. It's going to say form one three different times, right? So it's best just go in here and let me. So also, when you rename this, we're going to rename this one, and this is the one that looks like a form. It's going to rename these. It'll ask you to rename, and you'll go and you want to go ahead and say yes, rename it. So here, I'm just going to go ahead and go rename, and then I'm going to change this to you know measurement. I guess that's fine enough. Measurement. And then I'm going to hit enter here. I hope if I spelled that right. Measurement, and then I'll just hit enter here. And it's going to say, you're renaming a file. Would you like to perform a rename in this project for all references? And you want to click yes here. So now you have this. So now if you're working on this form, right? If I go ahead and do view code here, I'll put it there probably because it's still cached a little bit, I would think. That's why it's don't realize it. I have to close it probably. So let's try that again. View code. There's measurement. So there it is right there. Okay. All right. And another thing, so when you've got multiple, so that, that's a good reason to go ahead and rename your forms. Just makes things a lot less confusing that way. Okay. Also, I kind of want to mention, so when you do have multiple, when you have multiple programs in one solution, when you go up here, this is going to be just the last one you did right up here, right? When you're wanting to run this, so there's a little drop down. You want to choose which one you want to do, right? And even though it's not showing, it's going to run feet to meters here instead of this raises one. Okay. So in this case, we're going to do project raises. And it's telling you this just because it's got to really rebuild it after we made that rename change. Okay, so here's this is a student's completed assignment, not in our class, for different class, different previous semester class for the raises one. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and see. We'll just go ahead and enter some values here and. And we're going to click calculate here. Okay. You can see the way he did this is this take, all these values were not there until you hit calculate, right? So, and obviously here you've got the Jim, Joe, and Mark was dynamically created based on the names you put in here. This is pretty much static, right? This is just, this is the year label, 2018, 2019, 2020. But he didn't, when he created these are all individual labels here. Every single one of these and we'll take a look, is an individual label. This is probably the easiest way for you to do this. assignment. There's other ways to create data tables and that, but you know, it's a little more complex, you know, probably a lot more complex. So this is probably the easiest way is just use the labels here, okay? So each one of these, like I said, is a label. But in this case, what he had is all the labels didn't have any values. Even the ones that were pretty much static that he wasn't going to change, which is year 2018, 2019, 2020, didn't set the text on those labels until after hitting calculate. Not that it's a big deal. If you know, if you are doing this lab and yours is showing, that's fine, right? But obviously, all this other information is going to be dynamic based on your name and based on the value, you know, your salary and adding your multiplying your raise each year, right? So let's close this out. So did want to show. So here, one thing he didn't kind of do, and you know, it's like I said, if you did it just like, if you'll end up doing it just like this, that's fine. But he didn't use the group boxes for like employee 1, employee 2, employee 3. So I'll just show you a quick example of a group box if you want to do it that way. And so another thing is, you know, he's got a lot of boxes down here, or he's got a lot of labels down here you're not seeing, right? He created these labels, they're all down here, but you don't see them because there's no values in them. So basically, if you go ahead and go to select like that, you know, do the left mouse and lasso this, here's all the boxes, right? Here's all the boxes, or labels, I should say. You know, so here's all the labels, right? And you know, what he did was he kind of, you know, did a little more spacing between the top ones, because that was kind of some headings, and then the other ones are a little closer together. But you know, he did a very nice job on spacing and stuff like that, right? Yeah, let's, you know, we'll do that a little bit just to show you how to get that set up. And it doesn't have to be perfect, obviously, but you know, it'd be nice to look halfway decent, right? If I click off this, if you click in the right spot, you know what you're clicking. So there's the first one, right? You know, over here on the right-hand side, you'll see there's year. The next one is label 2018. This one is label 2019, right? And then label 2020, right? So, and then we're all the static ones that basically ain't going to change, but he you know, he didn't do it. He didn't put the values. Real quick look at it. If you look at the text, there's no text in there. So he put the text when you hit the calculate button. That's when he put the text in there for those. And the other ones obviously are dynamic, and it's only going to, you're only going to be putting it in here when. So here's employee label 1, right? And that's salary label 1, right? So that's how he did that. Okay. I guess that's all. Obviously, you know, it's a good idea to, you know, you click here and change your form name. He didn't, you know, he just called it form 1. But, you know, you can change your, change your text. Called it wrong thing. Change your text here, right? For your form. But if you do, like we did just a little bit ago, we changed our name of our form, it's going to reflect, here would be, it should, didn't do that though, did it? Okay, well, I'm not going to get caught up on that. So here's text, so that, you know, basically this is where you want to, you know, change your name here, right? Projected raises. So you probably should always do that, right? So here, let's go ahead and look at, so I think when we were looking at the labs, I think the kilometers to miles and miles to kilometers shouldn't be a problem. The egg one's not too bad. This is the harder one of the three. This is the harder one of the three. So let's just look at a couple concepts to help you a little bit here. So this one is still, I'm going to go ahead and rename this to samples Okay. And then let's just get rid of that. And I know you can kind of get lost here. Just always remember, click on right click on the name of your form. If it says form, that's fine. But and obviously there's the little form icon there at the beginning of it, and then you choose either view code or view designer, right? So here we're going to view the designer. It's just an empty one. So what I wanted to kind of show you here is a group box. And so I just clicked it, you click it or drag it over there. I clicked it kind of by accident there, and that's fine. That's the way it works too. So in this group box here, what we do here is you can change to be similar to for the that third lab. You could call this employee 1 like that, right? And so that's a group box there. Obviously, it'd be nicer to make this a little bigger and. You got employee 1, employee 2, and then inside there, you could you're kind of following what was on that mock-up, and you could put your not really that, but first you're going to put your label, dump your label in there, right? So the first one's going to be what name. I sure love doing that, don't I? Just a bad habit. I don't know why I do that. Label 1, so that's a name, right? Same for salary. Then you put your salary under here, right? And then you can do that for each one of those, right? Just wanted to kind of show you. You just use that group box to group the, and it's for grouping things that are for a specific purpose. Here you got employee 1 has a name and a salary. Employee 2 has a name and a salary, and it's a way to group that together, right? Just makes a lot of sense to do it that way. What else did I want to show? Yeah, I know earlier I showed where put a label over here. And then if you remember, I end up getting rid of the text on this label, right? And then when you do that, obviously it's all small here, right? Now when you got just one label, you can do that lasso, but when you had like that example where you had multiple labels, it's not going to choose just one, right? In this case, I'm lucky enough that it did. But in here, you basically want to choose resize. Where is that in here? I know I just had that. Had multiple ones there, right? And then when you get done, you can go in here and get rid of you get them all like you like them, then go out and just get rid of the text on each one of them, because once you get rid of the text, you're not going to see it there, right? So that's one way. Does that make sense? Do you think that you understand what to do there on that? Anybody want to put something in the chat that kind of makes sense what to do? And I'm just talking about for that pay raise one. Um, let me know. Yep. Okay, good. Because it can be a little complicated. The biggest thing is you're just going to have to make sure not the text, but make sure you label, you put the names, something so salary one, employee one, salary one, and just make sure you label all those because you're going to have to be able to get that. If you just leave the default labels, you're going to be very confused on which one to put the data in, right? Let's see. Is there anything else? Is there anything else that anybody feels that would be helpful to go over for those labs? I don't want to get into I think as far as adding the numbers up and stuff like that, you probably should be good with that. I mean, it's pretty much what we did. We did do the pay raise thing also in the console app, so that shouldn't be, it's kind of the same concept. You're just doing it kind of in a WinForms app. So just let me know. We've got, what is today? Today's Wednesday. So we still got Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So, if anybody has any problems with the labs, let me know. As far as the hands-on test, is everybody feeling pretty good about that at this point? I mean, the hands-on test, I think that, is easier than the, yeah, okay, good. Yeah. It was easier than the lab assignments. But like I said, generally in the in-person classes, you only have a small amount of time to do that, a couple hours or whatever, the instructor decides to do on that. But, with the online course, since, people work full-time in that, gave extra time for that. So I'm just going to save this. You understand about the solution stuff here too. I hope that kind of makes sense. So once you have a solution created, you can add other projects to that solution, so you can have multiple ones there. And then obviously, it's always a good idea to change the name of the solution, the lab, not the lab, the form name, so that when you have it up, you can see what it is. This one's sample. So, and then if you view code for this one, it's raises, instead of everyone being form one all the time, right? Because that could be a little messed up. It won't be long you get lost on that one. But you always could close stuff out. And then obviously up here, you need to use this drop down and select the right one before you hit the start, or hit the little green to execute the application, to build and execute the application. So, all right, so let's just go ahead and get out of here. And this chapter 5, it's not as grueling as chapter 4 one. It's not as long either. And, these are very important, very important to know the different control structures, so basically, we've looked at a little bit of this here and there, but not most of the if else. I don't think we did any if else, but there might have been a few things we looked at. But, basically, we want to, given a Boolean expression and the values for the variables and expression, evaluate the expression. That's the one I think we did a little bit of evaluating the expression using like the double ampersand or the double pipes, which is for or, right? The double ampersands is for and. Use if statements. We're going to learn how to use if statements, switch statements, and other kinds of loops, a while loop, a do while loop. And then we'll compare the if else and a switch statement, compare the if else statement and a conditional operator, and describe the differences between while, do while, and for loops. Explain how to break and continue statements work when used within a loop, which is important. Describe the use of breakpoints, stepping through code in the debugging window. we'll go ahead and do that, and then describe block scope in the context of control structures. Okay, good. So I know early on, I think it might have been the second day or something. I don't know, but I know I went through a little of this. Um, as far as equality, the double equal sign, and don't confuse that with an assignment. And I think I mentioned this more than once. That's a common error. A lot of times, somebody will do something and have a one equal sign instead of two, and they meant to check for equality, and before you know it, you use one equal sign, you're assigning something, and so you're assigning something instead of checking for equality, right? So inequality is using the exclamation point, and that just means not. Is this not equal to, right? Greater than, these are basic math ones. Less than, this is how you do less, or greater than and equal to, and this is how you do less than or equal to. Okay. And so here's just some examples. You're asking, is his first name equal to Frank? So obviously this has to be a string too. Is this string equal to that string? And then I guess, this is something you'll do within WinForms. At a point in time, you're going to check to see if something's empty, or, you might do some other logic checking to see if this text field equals a certain value. There may be some logic. You want to do something based on that. Also, you can test to see if something's null. Here you're doing, looks like a numeric literal, kind of a double here. 2.3, is this discount percent equal? Is valid? And, this is always a good way to do your Booleans. Is valid, is, starting out with an is a good one for Boolean when you're checking to see if, is populated, is, this, that, equal to another variable. Yeah. So this is where you got two different variables. You say, hey, is this variable the same value as this variable? Not equal to a literal string. So you just say, is the last name not equal to Jones? Years greater than 0, I less than months. And then here you got a subtotal greater than or equal to 50 or 500. And then the quantity is less than. So here's two variables. So you'll be doing that. We'll be doing a lot of that. Let's see here. So this is the double ampersand is a conditional and it returns true if both expressions. So you got, this is not showing it. It's going to show it in the future screen. But you got an expression on one side, you got an expression on the other, and you're saying if this expression is true and this one is true, if the left expression is true and the right expression is true, then that's going to return true. And then, and I know I mentioned this before, but so I'll mention this again. So with an and, only evaluates the second expression if necessary. So if the first one is false, these both have to be true. So if the first one's false, it's not even going to check the second one. Right? If this one's false, because they both have to be true, don't even check the second one. And then for an or, it returns if the left expression or the right expression is true, it's going to return true. And then the situation with this one, if the left expression returns true, it's not even going to check. It don't even need to check the right expression, right? And this is a single and, most of the time, I've always, for the most part, I think most people always use the double ampersand and the double pipes, which is the or, the conditional ones. But this will return true value if both expressions are true. Always evaluates both. So it's always going to evaluate both no matter what. There are some situations where you want to do that. But, for the most part, you're probably going to do the double ampersand and the double pipe. And same thing for or by using one. It's always gonna evaluate both of them, right? And then obviously the exclamation point is a not. Examples of logical operators. So, just like we were saying, it's going to check to see if subtotals is greater than or equal to 250. If this is false, then it's not even going to check this other side. But if this is true, then it's going to check and is subtotal also less than 500, right? So if both of these are true, then it's going to be true. And then here's an or. So you're going to do time in service is less than or equal to 4. Here's your expression. So obviously, if this for your double ampersand, your double pipe, your double pipe here, which is your conditional one. So if the first one here is true, if time in service is less than or equal to 4, then we're going to return true, and it's not going to check this. But if this is false, then it's going to come over here and check to see if this is true. And then if this is true, it's going to return true. Otherwise, if they're both, false, it's going to return false. Is valid equal true, and counter plus plus is less than years. Yeah. So, basically it's going to evaluate, and this is using the single ampersand and a single pipe. You're going to evaluate this, then you're going to evaluate this, and they both have to be true for it to return true. And then here's the or. These both have to be one or the other has to be true for it to return true. But even like we were saying with the single pipe, even if this is true, it's still going to check this as well. Okay. So, there's some situations here, especially how have this written, because you really do want to, I don't know. It depends on how your statements are kind of set up. But back to what I was saying, most of the time, I think you're better off with the conditional, using the double ampersand and the double pipe. And then here's one just to kind of confuse you with all this in here. Yeah, that's kind of neat. This is kind of an interesting one here. You can check if this is greater than this, if this is true, when you put the exclamation point, which is the not, the inequality one, the not, right? It's going to be the opposite. So if this returns true, what's in parentheses returns true, it's going to be the opposite of that, which is false. Or if this returns false, when you put the exclamation point, it's going to turn it to the opposite, right? So it's always the opposite of what's that returns in parentheses. The syntax of an if-else statement, yeah. So for an if-else, you're basically always doing, you're checking to see if something resolves to a true or false, right? And so if this block of code, whatever you have in here, if this is true, then you're going to perform whatever statements are in there, okay? And it's not going to go to these lines at all, right? If it's true, it's going to execute these statements, and that's it. Now, if it's not true, right? If this Boolean expression did not resolve to true, it's going to come to this next line. It's going to do else if this is true. If this is true, it's going to do these statements, okay? And if that's not true, it's going to fall through here, and else it's going to do these statements. So it's always going to do one of these three different statements. It's either if this one's true, it's going to do these statements. If this one's true, but it's not even going to check this, right? It's not even going to check this, right? It only checks this if this is not true. It's going to come down here and check this. Is this true, right? And then it's going to do these statements. And then if neither one of those are true, it's going to do these statements, okay? So when you do a if or else, this one's using your curly braces. And for the most part, a lot of times, I've always kind of been in a habit of using curly braces. And a lot of these if else statements, what you learned here in C sharp, JavaScript's the same, other programming languages, pretty similar on the if statements in a lot of ways. Just kind of point that out. But for a single statement, this is fine to do. You don't have to put the curly braces in, right? But sometimes you can. Sometimes it can get kind of messy, and I've seen code where you didn't really know what was being executed. So and a lot of times I still to this day always kind of do it. Put in the that didn't tab like I wanted to, but I generally always put in the curly braces, even for single lines. But you don't have to. Okay. So with a block statement, yeah. So here, you're doing more than two things, or you're doing more than one thing. So you're putting in. You got multiple statements. You got two statements. Here you only have one statement. Here you got two statements. So, and then here, you basically got one statement for your if, and you have one statement for your else. It's clean. It looks nice, right? It's not a problem. As long as you're, as long as you're spacing everything right, when you start getting your code messed up like that, it can be a problem. You get confused. Same thing here. You're just doing multiple. Each one just has one statement, right? And that's fine. But, once again, if somebody's, doing some strange spacing things and, you don't know what's going on, right? So you got to know what it belongs to, right? So nested if statements. So here you're doing an if. Customer type is R. And then you got your curly brace. And then you're doing another if statement. And you're saying if your subtotal is greater than 100, here's your discount percent. Else, here's your discount percent. All right. So basically, here, these are only going to be executed if customer type equals R, right? So basically, if this happens, then if this is true, right? If customer type is R, then this is all going to be executed. Well, I shouldn't say this all is going to be executed, but this is part of this being true. Then it's going to go on and check this. If this subtotal is greater than 100, it's going to use this one, else it's going to use this one. So in this case, if customer type is R, you're always going to have one discount percent or another. If this is true, you're going to have this discount percent. Otherwise, else, you're going to have that one. And so this else statement, this is only going to be if it is an R. So this don't get executed only. So only get executed if this is not R. All right. Now this is a switch statement, and what you can do here is you can have you match some expression, and then if it equals certain things, if day of the week, maybe I don't even know what the example is going to be here going forward. If customer type, okay, so if customer type, if customer type is R, then do these statements, right? And what you want to do here though is in this situation, once you reach your case, because there's going to be multiple cases in here, right? You perform your statements. You want to break out of this. If you don't, it's just going to keep on going through each case. You don't really want to do that. It's not efficient, even right. Even though it's even though it won't execute it because it didn't match, it didn't do it. you know, you still want to break out of it because there's no reason to read all of those, right? So let's look at an example here. So if customer type is R, then you would set your discount percentage to 1M and break. If it's right, you don't want to go to this next one. No reason to go to this next one because it's an R, right? So, but if it's not an R, it's going to go to the next case and says, hey, is this a C? If this is a C, it's going to set your discount percent to 0.2, right? And then it's going to break. And then there's the default one. So if none of the other cases are met, then it's going to go ahead and do this discount percent. Okay, it will do the default. Right, but the default never gets executed unless the other ones are not done. And that's one of the problems. And I'll have to check this. I'm almost sure. But if you don't have these breaks in here, it's going to execute this default. If you don't put these breaks in here, I'm almost sure. I'm gonna have to check that one. But I'm almost sure that if you don't put the break in here and you keep going through, your discount percent will be set here, and it's going to come through, and it's going to do this default one because you didn't break out of it. I'll check that. I'll let you know. A switch statement that falls through to the case label. A switch statement falls through the first case label. Case R, case C, okay. The syntax of a switch expression. Yeah, maybe we'll go into that a little bit later. Switch first with two cases. This is just another way to do this. And I think really looking at this kind of confuses things more than anything. Actually, probably even looking at this code might even be better. So you're basically saying this discount percent. So you're doing a switch statement on your customer type, right? And so if it's an R, discount percent is going to equal this one. If it's a C, discount percent is going to equal the 2, right? So this is kind of a shortcut for doing kind of the same thing we're doing. It's just kind of a shortcut. So it's going to do R, C, or T. It's just going to match which one, right? With expressions, perform a calculation. Okay. So here's a switch expression with a relation to operators. Yeah, I don't want to get too hung up and get people confused about this. This one's a very useful one is syntax for a conditional expression. So basically, it's a way instead of doing like an if, else, or something. This is kind of a simpler way to do that. You basically say if this expression's true, right? And usually a lot of times it's with maybe a string or something. So if this is a customer, return this one. Well, this one's showing different, right? But if this is true, return this one. Otherwise, return this one, right? So the question, and you always have to make sure you have the question mark after your expression, and then you always have the colon between the first expression, well, the true expression, that's true, and the false expression. So it's all, but this is a case where there's only going to be two options here, right? If this is true, you're going to do this, else you're going to do that, and that's it, right? So here you got a discount percent. If subtotal is greater than or equal to 100, we're gonna discount percent is going to be 0.1. Otherwise, it's going to be 0.05, right? And then here, pretty much the same thing. Okay, a statement that uses parentheses identify the Boolean expression. Okay. If a statement that performs the same task. So yeah, so this is how you're doing it. Like kind of just said a little bit earlier here. So here's your if-else statement for doing the same thing that you're doing up here, right? So this is just kind of a shortcut. It's nice. You can put it all on one line. Saves you some time. It's a little simpler once you get used to it. So it works good when you're just doing some simple thing. It's either this or it's going to be that, right? Let's see. I don't think we're going to enhance invoice form, customer type, subtotal. So yeah, this is just showing, using all the different code that kind of was in the chapter thing. So here's a while loop. Okay. So a while loop. So what you do here for a while loop, we didn't miss a for loop, did we? I don't think we did. I guess it's later. Okay. So a while loop, so as long as this expression is true, it's going to continue to execute these statements. So basically, when you execute the statements, it's going to come back up here, and it's going to check whatever logic you have here, and it's going to say, is this true? All right? If it's true, do these statements. And it's going to keep on doing this until this becomes false. And once it becomes false, it drops through and it's done. It just stops, right? It stops. It won't execute any more statements. So here's a while loop that adds numbers 1 through 4. So, okay, so here you got a variable of I is equal to 1. Okay, and you got a sum equals 0, equals 0. So in a lot of ways, for this, you're just creating, you're adding to the sum here. But the most important thing about this while loop is really your I, right? So this is these statements are going to continue to execute as long as I is less than 5. It's going to start at 1, all right? And this I plus plus, right? This is incrementing your variable, right? We already looked at incrementing, I know yesterday. So I is going to be 1. It's going to come in here, and the next time it's going to be 2, then 3, then 4. And then when it comes in here and it's 5, is 5 less than 5? No, it's not. And then it's going to stop, it won't stop executing these statements, right? A while loop that calculates a future value. Less than months, okay? It really didn't define what months was here, but that's okay. I guess you just figured it's 12, right? So yeah, so obviously you would have to have this variable defined as a number, right? So as long as, and we would say that most likely this would be 12, obviously. So as long as I is less than or equal to 12, right? It's going to continue executing this. And it's gonna keep incrementing the I variable, right? You increment this each loop. If you don't have this increment, you forget this, and I'm sure some students will have some problems when they do loops. You got to be careful. You get something in an endless loop. So if this is commenting it out, right? Or let's just say you basically forgot to even put this there at all, right there. This is going to endless loop. It's just going to keep on doing because I is 1. If 12's and if a month is 12, there's nothing to increment the I, and it's going to just keep on executing, and you'll have an endless loop until your program eventually will blow up on you there. But if you notice you do it, you usually a lot of things, like especially if you do a WinForms app and you kind of realize, hey, I messed this up, and you just hit the little red square at the top to stop the execution of the form, right? And sometimes you can do the same thing with a console app as well. But just to let you know, if you don't increment your variable and you're checking against that and you don't increment it, you're going to have an endless loop. Um, so, um, so this is a do while. Okay. So this is basically saying do while. So it's basically saying do this. It's just kind of a different form. It's saying do these statements while this is true. Okay. Do this while this is true. And so a do while is always going to execute this one time. So it's going to do this while this is true, but it's going to always execute this one time no matter what. So it's going to execute this one time, and then it's going to check to see if this Boolean expression is true. If this is true, it's going to continue executing this until this is false. Okay. So here we got an example. We're doing this while months is less than equal to 12. It's basically the last example. It's just doing it the different way. And here's maybe I better check on this because I'm a lot more familiar with Java than I am C#. But I would think that does. I'll check that out too. That's another thing. So I've got two things I need to check out. Okay. So here's a for statement. So for a for statement, you have a initialization expression. It's basically three parts. You have an initialization expression, you have a Boolean expression, and you have an increment expression. So before these other ones, we are incrementing it within the block of code. Here, all within the for statement, we increment it within here. Now, for statements are really good if you know, basically, if you know how many times you're going to loop through something. It's much more of a benefit for this kind of a for statement. If you know, oh, well, I'm going to do a top 10 of something, then you know you're going to loop through that 10 times, right? So here, let's go down here to the example. We've got, and this is kind of usually what you're doing too, is usually outside of your for statement. Here you got this for statement. Usually you have some other variable because usually you're doing something in here that you're saving. You're saving something, right? You're adding to something or you're checking for whatever you're doing. Though you're usually wanting to use that outside of the for statement. If you don't, if you defined string numbers inside of your for statement, let's just say you did this. I'm just going to point this out. So let's say, I hope this works with the, and actually you probably want to do it like this, and then, so here, I changed this around. So here you got string numbers equal null and numbers. So everything you do here, this is not accessible outside this for statement. I'm sure in the future slides we're going to be talking about this as well, but this is not accessible outside this for statement. So basically when you do all of this, until you execute this, and when this is done, it's done. It's going to leave this and that's it. You're not going to have anything. So basically that's why, generally, for a for statement, it depends on what you're doing. It's not, I want to say it's always the case. Okay. Nothing's ever always the case, but a lot of times, because you might be doing something else. It's so, but a lot of times what you're doing is, you're incrementing. Here you're printing something out. You're in the string. So, so this is a block statement. Yeah. So it's just basically showing here. This is just with one. If you only got one statement here, you don't need the curly braces. Here, if you got two, you want the curly braces. A for loop adds the numbers 8, 6, 4, and 2. Okay. So just to kind of walk through this, I don't even like that. I'm just going to kind of confuse things there with that. It's less than or equal to 2. I think that that's too much. I think that just confuses people. But you know, basically, you're doing here's you're initializing a variable j equal 8, right? And then here's your Boolean expression as long as j is greater than or equal to 8. And then here you're actually doing a decrement. You know, you're doing a decrement, right? You're going down, right? So as long as j is greater than 0. So here you're going to start at 8, then it's 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, right? 2, 1, and then when it gets down to 0, you're going to go ahead and you get out of this loop, right? When j is greater than or equal to 0, right? Okay, so here's a for loop. All right. Yeah, that's a good one. I like this. So basically, you're initializing it to 1, and then as long as it's less than or equal to the number of months, you're going to increment this. Okay. So you're going to keep executing this as long as I is less than or equal to months, right? And this is always where you're incrementing it. Just remember for loop, you always increment it within the for loop. So you start at 1, next time through it's 2, next time 3. So as long as it's less than or equal to months, so you're going to do it 12 times. So this is going to be executed 12 times. Let's go ahead and take a 15-minute break and come back at 10:15, and we'll continue on. You know, we won't be meeting for the complete time here today. We'll just go through a little bit more code, go through some more of these slides, and go through a little bit more, look at a little bit more code, and then I'll let you go ahead and go and work on your written test. I know the written test for Chapter 4 is pretty substantial, and so I'll give you time to work on that. So see you back in 15. Okay, so we'll continue with the presentation here. Not too many slides left. We're just a few of them actually. Probably look at here, and I'm going to just go through a little bit of code, and then I'll let you go for the day. It's basically, you know, here it's just telling you this is a loop with a break statement. Basically, what it's just telling you is so you've got a while loop, and so as long as this condition is true, right? As long as this condition is true, it's going to continue doing this while loop, right? But a break will actually stop the while loop. So in this case, you know, you've got a while the less than or equal to months, which, you know, I assume is 12 here. So if it's less than or equal to 12 months, it's gonna execute this. But it's got a thing here, though. It's basically going to say if the future value is greater than 100,000, right? Then it says future value is too large, and it's going to break, and it'll actually break out of this loop. So even though we have this expression here, and we're executing this as long as this is true, this Boolean expression here, but even though we have that, when you put a break, it'll actually break out of the loop. Okay. So basically, I guess two ways to get out of a loop is basically by, you know, fulfilling the Boolean expression, you know, and it's so as long as something's true, it's going to do it. Once it becomes false, that's the end of it. Or if you use a break, it'll break out of the loop. Okay. So here a loop with a continue statement. Yeah. So basically what a continue statement will do in a loop is we'll execute And then in a situation where here on this if statement, if as I is less than 4, this will actually continue. So this will not, it won't execute this line. Continue will go back up, and it'll just go to the next iteration. So this will, in this case, this is always going to be fulfilled. You know, loop's going to continue until this is fulfilled. But the only thing about this continue is it's going to actually skip this line here, because once you hit this continue, it's going to go automatically back up to here. So you're skipping anything after that. Okay. Yep. So yeah, and here's the result. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It didn't put big, and then it put big, right? So. Yeah, and then yeah, we'll put a breakpoint. I'll show you some code. Put a breakpoint. And it'll become much more handy in the future for you. Let's see. I don't see much of anything. Property settings for the controls. Yeah, it's just that example. Okay. Good with that. That's funny, that's funny. Ryan said that every time I take breaks, he gets startled when I come back. That's funny. Okay, so let's look at some code here. I'm not going to look at a lot, but you're going to look at a few things. So we do have. So what is this? This is just a console app. We're just doing a lot of write lines for different, in here. A lot of this stuff, I just figured, I don't see a lot of reason to execute this. We've kind of, talked about it. I don't think there's anything special here that by me running, it's going to show you. Actually, this is all going to execute anyhow, but I think the things kind of discuss here, I did want to mention the switch statement. So, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong how that worked, but basically if you don't have a break here, you have to have a break. If you don't have a break, it'll complain. So, and maybe that was a language change at one point in time, because I don't think that you always had to have that. Maybe I've just forgotten. That's possible. So basically, for a case, you're always going to have a break, right? What does it do here? What happens here? The same? Yeah. I don't think our example in our PowerPoint showed a break after that. Maybe it did. But, okay. So that's that. So here, just kind of want to go over this one. Just, because it looks a little different. And so, here you got a grade of B, right? So what it's going to do, it's going to say result. It's going to put the result. It's going to do the grade switch. Take this grade. Going to do a switch on this. This is a switch expression as opposed to, just want to point that out, a switch statement. This is a switch statement. Whenever you have case, when you ever have these switch cases, that's a switch statement. This is called a switch expression, okay? This is where whenever you use, a lot of times you use expressions, you're going to see this, the equal sign with a greater than, right? The arrow there, right? Arrow function. So here you got a grade of B, and basically it's just going to come down, and it's going to basically, in your result, you'll have the value 7.2 is good, and then and how we did the default for the previous one, this is basically the default one. So if you put like a grade, a D in here, it's going to be unknown grade. And anything but A, B, or C, right? Let's see here. make that a lot smaller. So here, just kind of, just a review on this one. Because, it's a little different, especially how this is with the question mark. So, basically you're saying you're going to string message, you're going to evaluate this, and then in string message, you're going to put the either this first one, if it's true, or the second one if it's false, right? Always remember you do the question mark and always have to have the colon, right? And you only got two options there, right? Either a true or false. So that's that. And like I said, yep, and always remember, you want to make sure that when you're doing something like these while loops, right? You're ever doing these while loops and that, you always want to make sure that you're incrementing your counter, whatever your expression is here, you want to make sure that you're doing something within your loop to make sure that this at some point will become false, right? So as long as this is true, right? As long as this is less than 3, it's going to execute. So, but when you're incrementing, eventually it won't be. But, if you're always going to want to be doing something with this statement in your while loop, or you'll be in an endless loop. And actually, while we took our little break here, I checked, and yeah, this is true. This, the do while, this will be executed no matter what this is. So here, let's just test this. Here's the counter of 3. So if I make this counter 3 is counter less than 3, so this would be false, right? So right off the bat, this will be false, but this will still be executed anyway. And let's go ahead and do that. This will be 11.2. So if I go ahead and run this, we're going down to 11.2. There you go. You're in that do while loop. Counter is 3. So that showed that this executed even though that this Boolean expression was false, right? So it always a do while always executes this first before it checks the while, before it checks this, right? It's always going to execute at least once. Let's put that back. How to code for loops. And then, like we kind of looked at before about the breaks, the break statement, right? So here, basically, you're looping through this as long as I is less than 5. But if obviously this doesn't make sense in the real world, because why would you loop through something 5 times, but then you're going to stop if it's a 3, right? This is just an example, though. But, there's other instances if something reaches something that you want to, your increment would usually, the thing you're checking for would probably be different than your increment, right? But your increment something so many times unless some other condition happens, right? So, but in this case, if I is equal to 3, you're going to break, right? So let's just look at that real quick. So if you're going to start at 0, so you're going to start at 0. And like I said, you'll see this a lot more as we go forward. A lot of this stuff is 0 based. But not that you can't put a for loop starting at a 1, but a lot of things are, especially like when we get to like arrays, which is a group of items. The first item is actually considered the subscript 0. It's considered, at 0, and it's kind of like a memory location, and just how computer languages work. And there's some other theories around why it was done like that, but basically arrays are one. It's always the 0. The first item is at the 0 location, right? So a lot of times you'll see in programming, you're going to see things starting at 0. So this is basically saying, start at 0 as long as I is less than 5, then you're going to keep incrementing this. So we're going to come in here, and then we're going to go ahead and see this execute. This should multiple times here, right? Because we're within the loop. Yeah. So let's just run this. And this will be 13.1. So loop with break. Well, it's going to print multiple times here, right? So I print the first time 0, then 1, then 2, right? So the first time, yep, the first time is going to be 0, then it's going to be 1, and then it's going to be 2. So then by the time this gets to to 3, it's gonna kick it out. Okay. Here's a continue statement. So here's one, and we kind of looked at this in the PowerPoint just a minute ago. So basically, you got a for statement, and here's you got an if. So if it's equal to 3, you're going to want to continue. So it's not going to print what's going to happen here. It's normally when you're coming in here, you're just executing. So this line, each time you come in here and it's 0 the first time, it's going to write this line. It's going to write this line each time unless I equals 3. If I equals 3, it's going to continue. So that means it's going to skip this and it's going to go back up to the next iteration, okay? The next iteration of this loop, right? So let's go take a look at that. So this is from, I to less than 5, right? So let's just go ahead and run that. And that one was 13.2. And then there you go. You've got 0, 1, 2. And then you see you don't have the 1 for 3, right? This was the first one, which is 0. You kind of got to get used to that because, counting. The first one was 0. The second one was 2. Okay, the third one was 2. The third one is 2. And then actually the fourth one, but the number was 3, right? And it's not printing it because if it was 3, it did a continue, right? So it printed it 4 out of the 5 times. It just didn't print the one when I was 3. Okay, there's that. All right, so then let's just go back here. And I think I did show you debug at some point, but, basically you put a line here. We can put a line. Let's put you click on that. That's going to put a breakpoint right there, right? That's going to put a breakpoint right there. And, let's just leave that there. And so we're going to go ahead and execute this. And so this kind of, how this is set up, this console app, it's just running through this whole thing, right? Because it's printing out all that into the console. So basically it's going to keep printing everything out into the console until, well, you won't see it, but it's because it's not going to actually show the console app until it's finished. But since we got a breakpoint, it's going to execute all this stuff. You won't see it in the console, but when it gets to this point, it's going to stop. So hopefully. So it's in debug here, so that's good. Yeah, okay, let's click this. So, boom. It brought it up, but yeah, it didn't really do anything. So here, it's going to stop this and continue. And then what you can kind of do here is you can see what the different values of everything is and so forth. So it's probably really hard for you to see, but, you can see the little 3. You can play with this yourself. But it's showing the value of this being I, right? And I think we should have some. Okay, that's not showing that, but okay. Got some stuff with my sharing in my way. We'll go through this more later. I'll come up with a little better scenario for you so we can really see different variables and everything else. But like I said, this will show you basically, you got to hover over this right way. This is 3. So basically it's showing you what it's doing as you go, right? And then 2 ways. So, but I'll go ahead and click this one here. So this is only going to do this one time. And then the next time we run this, we continue, go up here and click continue. Up at the top of your Visual Studio, continue. It's just going to go to the next line. So at this point, this next line, I is what? I is 4. So it did that continue. It went up here, came through, and this next time it came through, I was 4. So this didn't execute, and now it's going to print out the 4, right? So it printed out the 0, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and then it skipped 3, and now it's getting ready to print 4. So then you click continue here. It's a very big tool, very, very useful tool, especially you get stuck with some things, very useful. So you can click continue here, right? And then, so let's do that. And I guess it did come down here. It's just there. So there it is. And, just make sure, if you're done doing something, you want to get rid of those breakpoints there, right? So you want to get rid of those breakpoints, just click on them again. So very simple. So what is it, about 10:30? So I don't really have anything more today. So next, obviously you've got your hands-on test, you got your labs, you got your 2 written tests for this week. Thursday we won't be meeting tomorrow or Friday. There'll be lab days.